Today is the 12th of January 2021. New year. Soon to have a new president, which is going to make the next 4 years extremely challenging. I want to take a little time to talk about something that I want to address something that for Christians is called spiritual warfare. You know, it's really not taught in church much. Spiritual warfare. I don't think some people kind of have, you don't have an understanding of it either, and I don't think they teach you to have an understanding of it. I'm just going to tell you my take on this. I'm not by any means an expert in anything, to be honest with you. But I will say this, there is a supernatural world. How can I say this? Because my foot has been in it. My foot has been in that supernatural world. And all I can tell you is, where do you go for answers? Seriously, where do you go for answers? You're going to find out real quick. If you belong to a church, and you'll find out I'll put it this way. You'll find out real quick people where their faith lies. It never fails, honest to goodness. Phone rings and I'm in the middle of this. You'll find out real quick what a person's faith is, what their belief system is, if you ask them to come with you to put their foot into the supernatural world. You'll find out real fast what they think. How they will, it's really funny what they think they believe, and what they think. You'll find out real fast if you're willing to ask them, come along. I want you to, I need your help with something in a supernatural aspect, and see how quickly they decide how weak they are with their faith. You'll really find out real fast. Why do I bring this up? Well, the Bible says it's not flesh and blood that we war against, but powers and principalities and in high places, wickedness in high places. High places can be translated into several ways. It can mean high places, meaning beyond our atmosphere. That could be one translation. The other idea of high places is in biblical times, particularly in the Old Testament, when people worshipped false gods, they built altars on mountaintops and hilltops, and they called those the high places, where they would go and worship their idols. So, well, what does this actually mean? That powers and principles, you're not wrestling against flesh and blood, because the spirit world spills into the natural world. It's hard for people to understand that, but it does. How it works, I don't know. I do know this. There are spiritual laws that human beings are not aware of. You're not really aware of these spiritual laws. I'll give you one spiritual law. You draw close to something. If you make the conscious choice to draw close to something, whatever you're trying to draw close to will draw close to you. That's the number one spiritual law. It works that way with God. God is here. You are here. God will not draw this way towards you unless you make the attempt to draw to him, and then he will draw toward you. That can take place in a lot of ways. But it's not just God that does that. The other forces, the powers and principalities in high places, they do the same thing. If you decide you want to draw close to the powers and principalities in high places, they'll draw close to you. Now, I don't know how many people of you think about this, but there are people that are devoted to God. There are people that give their life to Christ. They move close to God, and they go about the whole process. There are people that do the opposite. That go to who we would call the enemy, that move towards Satan, do the same exact things. Do the same exact things. But they do it for a different reason. Don't think for 5 minutes there are not people on this planet who know and understand this simple spiritual law that I told you about. Satan will give you what you want. He will give you absolutely what you want, but there's a price to pay for it. He will even go an extra mile if you decide to go and to worship him. If you decide to worship Satan, he will show up. Not only will he show up, he will give you your heart's desires, particularly if your heart is dark. He will give you wealth, he will give you fame, and most of all, he will give you power that goes along with it, but there is a price to pay. Now, why do I say this? Because there are people in this world, in high places, in power, in government, in Hollywood, places of influence, power, prestige. That's where a lot of this is. That's where if you think for 5 minutes that a lot of things that go on in Hollywood and in politics is bound to this earth, you are sadly mistaken. You do not pay attention. A lot of it is out there. You don't even know it. The symbolism is all over the place. You think nothing of it, but the symbolism is there. And when they are bowing before their master, their dark lord, their dark master, whoever you want to call it, they're out there in the public symbolizing. They put symbols out. If you don't believe me, watch halftime games at the Super Bowl. It's filled with it. Am I a conspiracy person? I have become one. Over the years, I've become one for many reasons, because I realize that there are things there that are real and true, more true than looking at your own face in the mirror and you're not being told about it. You're being lied to. And my whole point of bringing this up is very simple. And once again, I'm kind of tailoring this to people who claim they're Christians. The word says, what does light have in common with darkness? How can two walk together unless they're in agreement, right? If you have people that are close to powers and principalities in high places, even on a low level, let's say people that are involved with witchcraft, people that are low-level Satanists, and they all get together and they do their stupid... There are people practicing spells, witchcraft. There are people, voodoo is a real good example of this, that are doing things in dark. Don't discount the stuff that they do, because once again, there's spiritual laws. There are spiritual laws in high places that you don't realize. And some of these people are practicing rituals. Some of them are doing sacrificial rituals. On a low level, they're killing a chicken, killing a goat. That's nothing. That's nothing. Don't think for 5 minutes there aren't people that are sacrificed to demonic powers, because it happens. What do you think happens though? So many of these children get abducted, you never hear about them again. You think it's all sex trafficking? Do you really believe that? I mean, do you really think that somebody can have children, give birth to a child, and then have it ritually sacrificed and no one would know about? People do this. You think it's impossible because it sounds a little crazy, but people do this. There is no greater sacrifice to satanic forces than a human life, and particularly a child, and particularly a baby. I bring this up for one reason, because I've been following politics for the past 4 years. I've been watching what Donald Trump has done and so on and so forth, because I found him very interesting. He captivated my attention because he was so unlike everything we ever seen before. And in case you didn't know this, and if you weren't paying attention, because most people aren't, there were covens of witches all over the world. There were Satanists all over the world. You can find the information online. It's not hard to find. They're very public about it. They are practicing dark rituals to get rid of him. Now, if you're a Christian and you're praying against the president, and these are the people that are praying against, performing rituals against the same president, who are you aligned with? Think about it. If God opposes that, and you're in agreement with them, there's a problem. You have a problem. So this is what I want somebody to investigate. Let's see who is on Joe Biden's side and the Biden-Harris administration. See who is performing rituals for their success. If they're performing rituals for their success, and you're a Christian and you're performing rituals for success, there's a problem. I want you to think about it. There's a problem because of your alignment with who you are aligning with. Jesus was accused of doing his miracles by the power of Beelzebub. In case you don't know what that is, Beelzebub in Hebrew, in that term, meant Lord of the Flies. It was a huge insult, which really meant Lord of shit. Okay? That's what it meant. It meant Lord of shit. It was one of the worst insults they could give Jesus. You are practicing these miracles because you do it in the name of the Lord of shit. It was a huge insult. Jesus' reply was very surprising. He says, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." If I'm doing this by the power of Beelzebub, I'm dividing his house. I'm healing. I'm bringing the kingdom. I'm doing good things here. Think about that as a believer, as somebody who's a Christian. If you're a non-Christian, none of this is going to make any sense to you. Who do you align yourself with? Who do you align yourself with ideologically? Who do you align yourself with? I have said before, and you need to understand this. Plain and simple. The aborting of human life is a ritualistic form of child sacrifice. You may not think so, you think it's a choice, but what it really is, it's a choice based on yourself. What is easier for me? I will terminate this life. I will terminate a life that is unique genetic individual within me in the very stages of its life, of forming, of development. No different than somebody my age or somebody that's 2 years old. We all have to start somewhere. When you take the life of a child that's in a womb, not because you're trying to, this has nothing to do with like saving the life of a mother. You have that's a whole different issue. But if you're trying to, I made a mistake, I got pregnant, I really don't want this child now because it's not convenient for me. You're sacrificing you're sacrificing the child on the altar of your own personal convenience. It's very dangerous, people. This is the problem. You don't understand it. And what makes it terrible is when you have a country, you have a nation, and you have a people that the government is behind allowing it. The government produces funds for it, takes public funds for it, and gives it to people to do. We have a problem. If they are doing it, if they're paying for it themselves and they're doing it without the government sanction, it's a whole other issue. Even if it's legal, we can argue with the semantics about that. But the point is, it's a point of this. What is wrong? When somebody calls wrong right, right wrong, there's a problem. The spiritual rules of how these things work, we don't know. I just know there's a bad end to one and there's a good end to the other one. You need to understand these things when you start screwing around with things of this nature. Blood sacrifice, human blood sacrifice is a very powerful ritualistic tool that's been used for millennia. It's not a joke. You need to understand it. It's not a joke. Ritualistic, sacrificial rituals have power and they have consequences. They manifest themselves in the spiritual realm. It's not a joke. It's not fantasy. I wish I knew all these things. I wish I had an understanding. I've been part of some things. I've witnessed some things. Downright scary ass shit. Honest, really. I've had people come to me for help when they had strange things going on in their house, and I try to put together a small little group of people that I know are not frightened of that, and I've had people chicken out on my ass. Where I have maybe four people together, and there'd be two of us left standing, but two of us could get rid of that crazy stuff. Whatever the hell it is. I've been involved with this. Like I said, I've had my foot in both dimensions. And believe it or not, when you decide you're going to make a stand, when you're going to make a stand for some of this stuff, there's a price to pay, because that stuff that you go after, it comes after you. It does. And it manifests itself in all kinds of crazy ways, and it tries to destroy. It tries to break your will. It tries to break your loyalty. It tries to snuff you out, to make you stop doing the path that you're on. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, and I don't know if this makes any sense to you, to anybody watching this, but I want you to understand something. Do your research, do your homework, check where your loyalties lie, check where your ideological belief system lies, and see who is against you, and look and see who's practicing things in the darkness against what you have. And you have to turn the tables, because if they're for somebody, if you're for the person that these people are for too, you have a problem. You have to look and see what are they accomplishing in the darkness that you're trying to accomplish in the light. There's a problem. You're supposed to counter the darkness. So if these people think that I'm for this guy and we're performing these rituals and we're doing this because he's going to be successful, if you're aligning yourself with them, there's a problem. Do your homework. Do your research. Stop sitting around and pretending that this stuff, it doesn't exist. Because the spirit world is real, and actually, in a way, it's more real because that world's eternal. This world's temporal. The word says, don't be afraid of men, meaning humanity, mankind. Be afraid of the one that can kill both body and spirit. Because the body gets destroyed here. The spirit goes on. There's a problem. You need to do your homework. Pay attention to who supports who and how they're doing it. Till next time.